Time for some bracketology presented by Upwork, the world's work marketplace. Find the perfect developer, designer, and more on Upwork.com. Juwan Howard's return to the sideline for Michigan was a forgettable one. Michigan blew a 17-point lead to Indiana, ultimately losing 74-69. Will that keep the Hoosiers' Bubbles hopes alive? Well, yesterday, our bracketology expert, Jerry Palm, had Indiana as one of the first four out. This morning, they are still in the first four out, but the first of the first four out, so progress. Meanwhile, the last four in, SMU, Xavier, Rutgers, and Texas A&M. Talk about the latest bubble news. We've got CBS senior writer Matt Norlander and the coach Avery Johnson with us this morning to see whose bubble is still intact and which ones might be popping. Matt, what did that comeback win yesterday for Indiana do for their resume?
I think it helped the Hoosiers a lot, and I actually can't kind of believe where we're at here on this Friday morning with the bubble situation and the teams that have now clogged around that cut line. Indiana, you could make a case, could feel somewhat decent about being in that first four group, last four in, going to the first four in Dayton. I think a win against Illinois would put it to bed. This is a huge Friday. I can't wait to see what we get across the board here. Indiana right now, I can't go all the way there. Now, the problem is, and this isn't the only thing, but the non-conference strength of schedule for Indiana is 304th. It was 308, actually got bumped up night over day here. But when you get so close with all of these, from a historical perspective and how the committee behaves, Avery, if you're grouped in with three or four other teams on that cut line and the committee looks and says, here's a power conference team, it didn't really try as hard as it should have to play better teams in its non-conference. We're going to go with the teams that wound up having a tougher road outside of league play. That's why I'm not all the way there with Indiana. I think it needs to beat Illinois. If it does beat Illinois, I think the Hoosiers are in. If it does not, I think it's going to be extremely close. And I would lean that Indiana does not get in if it doesn't beat Illinois today.
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. And this matchup today, Trace Jackson Davis is going to have to play significantly better than he played in the last game against Illinois. You know, he only had 6 points. Indiana was outscored 40-21 in the second half. And Trace Jackson Davis, we know he's going to see all sorts of double teams, triple teams. He got off to a slow start against Michigan. They turned it on in the second half, but I don't think, Matt, they're going to be able to wait to turn it on in the second half tonight. They're going to have to come out, make some shots, spread the floor. Their spacing is going to have to be impeccable. And I agree with you. They desperately need to win this game. Frank Martin from South Carolina was complaining, yesterday about, his team having as good a record as some of the other teams in this conference, but they're ranked higher. Because, again, that non-conference schedule is significantly important. And I don't think Indiana did enough in the non-conference and also in the conference to be in. But this win could go a long way against Illinois tonight.
Yeah, fans won't have to wait very long. 11:30 matchup there. All right, Matt, Rutgers has Iowa in the other Big Ten quarterfinals. Have the Scarlet Knights done enough in your mind to make the dance as it stands? Or do they need another win or two to solidify a spot? Again, they're taking on Iowa.
I think one more win will do it, but the Big Ten's fascinating because we just talked Indiana. Michigan, oh, by the way, it finishes 3 games above 500. Only 4 teams have gotten into the tournament as an at-large. 3 games or fewer under 500. So Michigan, I don't know if it's super safe. And then as for Rutgers, a loss isn't going to get them in my opinion. Right now, I'm going to read off team sheet metrics for you. Sagarin, 59. Ken Palm, 74. BPI, 72. In the net, they're floating. They can't get out of that 75 to 80 range, which I think is a killer. Not absolutely can't get over, but when you look at the results-based metrics, KPI 58 and strength of record 50. Not better than 50 in any single team sheet metric heading into the day. Those metrics would dip if they don't beat Iowa. Most of them would dip. If they lose by 1, the predictives actually might nudge them up because they're expected to lose by more than 1 or 2 points to Iowa. A win gets them in. You can see the quad 1, quad 2, quad 3 there. How about this? Rutgers is one of the few teams that's even close to the bubble situation that has a win and a loss in all 4 quadrants. I don't think Rutgers can survive a loss against Iowa, which would be a reasonable and understandable loss. I actually think it's going to be too much for this team to overcome because, again, you've got 2 quad 3s and a quad 4 loss. when you are stacking that up. They've got good wins, but I think it's going to be a close shave. I want to be clear on this before I toss it to Avery here. It would not stun me if Rutgers lost to Iowa and found its way going to Dayton and made the bracket. But when I look at how lowly it's rated in all 6 team sheet metrics compared to the other teams that are also trying to get into the field, it is stark. And my expectation is that when the committee actually lines up Rutgers against these other teams, it's going to have a hard time justifying putting them in the field. Again, if it loses to Iowa, I think a win against Iowa is so valuable that Rutgers is in the field.
Well, Matt, if Rutgers make it to Dayton, I'll see them there because I'll be on the call. And so I'm really excited about that. And I just think for Rutgers, obviously you always want to point at the stars, Ron Harper, but Geo Baker's going to have to play like a senior. You know, he had 25 points early February against Ohio State, and he's really good in this middle pick and roll, getting the mid-range, you know, throwing lobs. You know, here's a trail 3, but he's got to look to score more. He's been a little inconsistent, you know, 6 points in the last game, but, you know, they're going to need, you know, high teams from him today to have an opportunity to do just what you talked about, get in the tournament and look for an opportunity to advance.
Rutgers looking like the definition of on the bubble right now when you listen to you guys talk about him. Meantime, in the SEC, we got Texas A&M. They overcame an 8-game losing streak this year. They're taking on number 4 Auburn at noon. The Tigers in play for number 1 seed, while the Aggies, fresh off that win over Florida, fighting for their lives. Jerry Palm has them as part of the last 4. And Matt, where do you see their chances stand right now?
I wouldn't have them that close, but a win over Auburn, oh my goodness. I actually love these stories. And what I mean by that is just about every single year, we have a team that kind of just floats out in the ether. And then we get to about a week before Selection Sunday, if not sooner, and it's like, whoa, okay, actually, let's re-examine this resume. They actually might be in the picture. Texas A&M has not been a team projected to make the NCAA tournament, be anywhere close, but it's slowly but surely crept into the picture. If it's able to beat Auburn, whew, I mean, it's right there with Oklahoma beating Baylor on Thursday, getting yourselves at the table. It would have a really good shot. Obviously, Palm would have them well positioned to be in here. The quad 1 record's not great, but they do have a pair of quad 1 wins. They have 3 quad 1 wins at that point, a pair of quad 3 losses, which is not an absolute killer, but you see all the data here. I mean, if they beat Auburn, I think they're probably going to have to scoot in. But this is where it gets tricky for the teams that have put themselves out of playing at the moment, you know, with Xavier losing. BYU's been sweating it out for a while. Texas A&M, I think, is going to keep it competitive. My prediction for the game is Auburn's going to win this and Texas A&M won't make the NCAA tournament. But if Texas A&M does beat Auburn, Buzz Williams' group can do this, then I think you have to put them in when you really stack that resume up against others. We just talked about Rutgers. A&M's numbers across the board, team sheet metric, it'd be better than Rutgers at that point, and I think you'd have to put them in.
Yeah, but this is an uphill climb for Texas A&M. You know, I look at this matchup, Henry Coleman III, especially against Jabari Smith. I just, you know, Auburn's going to dominate this game. They're too deep. You know, Walker Kessler inside, you know, blocking shots. Their guard play is just too strong. I just think they're too strong, too deep. I don't think Texas A&M in this game are going to be able to score enough points against this vaunted Auburn's defense. And the way they can mix and match Bruce Pearl with all of his different lineups, he can go big with Kessler and Smith. He can go small and play Smith at some 0.5, you know, a kid that's going to probably be a top 3 pick in the draft. You know, Coleman is going to have another, you know, outstanding performance, 22 points in 41 minutes in his game on yesterday. But I just think Auburn is too deep. They're going to advance. And I think this will be the end of Texas A&M run with an opportunity to get in the NCAA tournament.
We'll see if it is, in fact, the end. They've got that matchup against Auburn today at noon. Matt and Avery, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. Remember, check out the Eye on College Basketball podcast with Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish. They're diving into championship week as we inch closer and closer to Selection Sunday.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.